शाम बखैर और द ब्लैक होल में आप सबको खुश आमदीद। इसमें शायद दो राय ना हो कि आज की दुनिया इल्म, साइंस और टेक्नोलॉजी की दुनिया है। ये भी कि ये बहुत तेज़ी से तब्दील हो रही है, हर लम्हे आगे की समत जा रही है और जिद्दत को गले लगा रही है। और दूसरी अहम बात यह है कि इस तेज़ रफ्तार तब्दीली का साथ सिर्फ वही मुआशरे दे सकते हैं जो इनोवेटिव हों, जो जिनके उसातज़ा जो है वो इल्म के लिए बाहें खोलें और ये कि असली तकाज़ों से भी आमांग हो। और इसके लिए फिर ज़ाहिर है कि हमें ये ख़्याल रखना चाहिए कि वो जो टेक्नोलॉजी के जदीद टूल्स हैं उनको इस्तेमाल करने का हुनर भी जानें और जो तदरीसी तरीके या पेडागोजीज़ हैं वो ऐसी अपनाएं जो हर तालिब इल्म के लिए तालीम को आसान बना सके, बामानी बना सके और काबिल रसाई बना सके। एंड हेंस वी आर हेयर टुडे विद अ सेशन titled How Teachers Can Responsibly Use Generative AI and Inclusive Teaching Methods in STEAM. And STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts and Mathematics. और इस मौजू पर गुफ्तगू के लिए वी आर वेरी ग्रेटफुल टू प्रोफेसर जवाद अरशद डार, जो ये मेरे सामने की कितार में दाईं जानिब तशरीफ़ फरमाए। इज़ द प्रोफेसर ऑफ मटीरियल्स केमिस्ट्री एंड हेड ऑफ क्लीन मटीरियल्स टेक्नोलॉजी ग्रुप एट यूनिवर्सिटी कॉलेज लंदन। Moreover, Professor Jawwad is co-founder of UPSIGN, that is UK Pakistan Science and Innovation Global Network. आप लोगों की आमद का शुक्रिया। थोड़ी सी जहमत करके अपने सेल फोन्स काइंडली साइलेंट मोड में स्विच कर लें सो दैट देयर इज़ नो डिस्ट्रैक्शन। प्रेजेंटेशन और गुफ्तगू के बाद हस्ब रवायत हाउस ओपन होगा फॉर Q&A एंड इंट्रैक्शन। तो आप उसमें ज़रूर शरीक होइएगा। जस्ट रेज योर हैंड फर्स्ट व्हेन द हाउस इज़ ओपन फॉर Q&A, ताकि आपको ये माइक्रोफोन दे दिया जाए। इसके बिना आपकी आवाज़ जो है वो ऑनलाइन ऑडियंस तक नहीं जा पाएगी। सो बस इस चीज़ का ख्याल रखिएगा एंड दैट्स इट। सो लेट्स स्टार्ट द सेशन। प्लीज़ वेलकम प्रोफेसर जवाद अरशद डार।
ये लाइटें में अच्छा well third time lucky I'm back and it's a real honor. First of all, thank you to the organizers. Afaq, you've got the best Urdu of anybody I know, and maybe I'm going to try and use generative AI to give me an Urdu introduction like that next time. That's probably how I'm going to improve. But I love the way you speak. I mean, it's incredible. So this subject, I put the AI bit first because it's very, people are very interested in the AI. If I was being honest, I would have put the inclusive teaching methods in STEM bit first and then the AI second. But I purposely loaded the slides more with AI a little bit as well. So let's start from the beginning. British Pakistani, I am. Professor of Machine Learning, yes, you got that. I'm also Vice Dean of Enterprise, so I also am now in my faculty. I also have the responsibility to train academics how to work with industry, and I think AI can help there as well, I suspect, if I think about it. I am the co-founder of UPSIGN, which is a group of British Pakistanis who all working with Pakistan, building the bridge between Pakistan and looking at British Pakistani academics who are struggling in UK to get in the best universities and things like that. So I'm in UCL. I'm very lucky, top 20 university. I have a very strong research group. And in 2017, I founded UPSIGN because I felt we needed to start working together rather than doing our own thing coming to Pakistan. So what happened was an experiment. Can Pakistanis work together? That was the experiment, instead of treading on each other. And I know Pakistan since childhood. My mum is from Old Lahore. I've been coming since a child. I'm observing people's behavior and thinking, okay, so this is a challenge. And I'm really delighted to say in 2025, we have a very strong network of British Pakistanis. Everybody knows UPSIGN. I met your planning minister today. I met your HEC number 2 today. We are working with hopefully high-level organizations, British Council. They know us very well. We're hoping they're going to support our work. So we come here in our spare time. This is our holiday time. We volunteer. We don't get any payment. They cover our costs. The reason I say that is the first thing Pakistanis say to me is, why are you here? Why are you bothering? Why are you wasting your time? And it's not wasting my time. I get so much love, happiness. Just the people in this room who I know well. I mean, you guys are the best people in the world because you work under the most difficult of circumstances. I mean, we could start talking about politics and God knows what. So I admire you. I take my hat off to you. And that's why me and other volunteers like me, we come here because it's actually something better than our lives in the UK, where we are, we have a great jobs, we teach, we have our own issues, but nothing compared to you guys. So, I take my hat off to all of you, first of all. Okay, so let's get on to the subject. By the way, quick introduction. This is my website, ucl.me.uk. UCL will hopefully pay me a lot of money one day to get that back, but at the moment I'm sitting on it. If you press on Professor Darr, you can find out a little bit about me, professional, and a little bit personal if you want. There's nothing much to say. This is UPSIGN. It's my website. I'll put it at the end if you're interested. There's a lot about research. We are teaching and research. We're interested in lots of things. This is the core group, actually. This is a diagram I produced a little while ago. I am the co-founder with Khalid Mahmood, and our current chair is a lady working at Imperial College called Madhya Sajid. She does a lot of female leadership and other types of stuff. If you ever get a chance to meet her, she's an amazing person. I really thoroughly recommend her. We have people in social sciences. We have people who, the father of biomaterials is Professor in Pakistan. He pioneered biomedical materials. They are commercializing products. Ashik Anjum is one of the leaders in AI and one of the first people to start AI in Pakistan. And he's a real leader. And we have some Pakistani academics and others who are experts in energy. So these are the sort of priority areas. And these are mainly where we all do research. But also, you can see there's an education and training group there. And this is what we're here talking about, STEM education and latest methods and pedagogy. So some of you are new lecturers, some of you are experienced lecturers. So you'll really find some of what I'm going to say interesting, hopefully. Acha, just before I talk about I finish talking about UPSIGN, basically, when British Pakistanis or Pakistanis give money, they usually give zakat for religious reasons. They usually give money. That's the most popular thing, is to give money. And in Pakistan, they give money as well. But the number is huge amount of money, 1.25 billion a year they give in terms of for the religious reasons, for zakat. Very few people actually volunteer their time. So this is what UPSIGN is about, trying to change the concept. Okay? Instead of giving money, give your time, give your expertise. And this is a British Council report, which I want to just highlight that it's a low number of people actually give time. Or, people give in kind or cash, but not volunteering. Okay, so pedagogy. So this is really about how we teach. It's like focusing on how different methods of teaching, and I'm going to talk a bit about that after the AI section I'm going to talk about. And, it's really about processes and strategies. And you have a set of learning objectives and how we get there, basically. So, you can teach something. Like, imagine if you are, say, I'm dieting, and you're doing various things. But if you haven't lost any weight, as I know, then you have not successfully achieved the objectives, right? Which is to lose weight. So in the same way, you can teach something, but if the students haven't really picked it up and actually absorbed it, and then they can sort of do something, analyze data, whatever, then you failed in your objective as a teacher, right? So we all know that. We all understand that point. And basically what you have, is a toolbox. The toolbox is the sets of skills and the ways you teach and how you engage the students, and all of these things that make an amazing teacher. And everybody remembers their favorite teacher, right? And their worst one, which we do explore in the workshops. This is a picture from Murray from last week. UPSIGN has trained now, as of next week, we'll have trained about 700 across academic institutions. We did one school to test we changed some of the content. We've done affiliated colleges, and we've done universities. So next week will be about 700 people. This is from the Murray group, where at the last minute we had to change location to Murray. So it was a really logistical exercise, but this is the sort of pictures of some of this stuff. There's a lot more going on. This is basically UPSIGN has designed a highly interactive 2-day workshop. The original workshop was a 5-day with Quaid-e-Azam University in August 2022. We condensed it. People said, we don't want to do 5 days. And so we turned it into a 2-day intensive thing. You're not going to transform a teacher in 2 days, but what you will do is you can give them a set of toolbox, they can really, really go to the next level compared to chalk and talk or whatever they're doing at the moment, PowerPoint slides by death like me. So what we are showing them is some of the new inclusive methods. Some of them have been around since the 60s, believe it or not. For PBL, for example, problem-based learning has been around since the 60s in America. So they're not really new things, but now people are taking them on board. And our mission is to bring some of that to Pakistan. And the other thing we teach in this 2-day intensive workshop, which the feedback is incredible. I mean, I'm happy to share it with any of you. But what we also teach is new approaches to basically using AI tools to probably support the teaching. Now, this is very controversial, and I know today it's going to be controversial. This is why I'm here, because this is the place, right, where we talk about controversial things. So let's talk about AI in education. I'll briefly talk about research, because that's where that's where I'm from. I'm not a pedagogy expert like some of the people in UPSIGN are real experts. That's what they do. I'm a research professor at the end of the day, who's sort of learned about pedagogy from these guys, actually, because in my day, we didn't have access to that. So when we think about AI, we remember things like the Turing test, which is the ability of a computer to mimic a human being. And to pass the Turing test, you had to do Alan Turing. You all remember Alan Turing from the wartime, cracking the Nazi codes and all that in Bletchley Park, which is very close to my home, actually. So the Turing test was basically, can a computer mimic a human, not necessarily think like a human, but can it mimic a human so that a person who was blindly talking to this AI or person can't tell the difference between the AI and the person. So but imitation is not what we should be about. It's not about imitation. That's not the thing. It really should be about whether you can actually use computing in an intelligent way, like a human being thinks. Okay, so that's where neural networks. So we say AI and machine learning, ML, is a subset of AI. So AI is just, can you reproduce like a human, right? In the Turing test. But ML is a subset of that, and that is more using things like neural networks, which is how the brain basically works, okay? So we have these very large language models, and what they do is basically huge amounts of computing power and data produce these large language models, and they are able to, so they use these algorithms, these machine learning algorithms, i.e. neural networks like the brain, and they are able to do amazing things. Okay, so that's when I say ML, I mean the algorithm. If I say AI, I just mean the general topic of mimicking like a human. That's really what we mean. So let's get those definitions out of the way. So, and we also have this thing called generative AI, which is using these large language models, these big, intensive data sets. And we all know about ChatGPT. One of the interesting things is, so we're using these sophisticated algorithms. You all heard about the Ghibli, Tom and Jerry? Everybody heard about it? So basically now, AI is able to do like a 30-second Tom and Jerry cartoon. And you might say, well, how can it do that? In the past, AI is progressing so quickly now, the sophistication is going very fast. So previously, AI, okay, it can produce some sort of rapidly help you to produce lots of images, that's fine. But now what AI can do is it can actually, it can keep, I'm going to say in its mind, but you know what I mean. It doesn't have a mind. But it can keep in mind the narrative of the story and then generate the cartoon on the basis of that. And that's the difference. In the last few weeks, I'm talking, these things are coming daily. So this Ghibli is the organization. And what they've now been able to do is produce things that would have taken, how long did cartoons used to take? Months and months to produce 30 seconds it would take. Now it can be done pretty much quickly, straight away. Now, unfortunately, AI is a little bit biased. It is biased because the data set that you use is biased towards the data that you use, you see. And the data is inherently biased. So whilst in research, there are some benefits. Let's quickly talk about the benefits. You can do automation. You can, you can have closed loop. So in my science, material science, what we do is, let's say we're trying to make a battery. So we make 100 battery materials. We test them. And we put all the data in an AI. This is something I'm actually doing right now with a collaborator in Australia. She's an AI specialist. I'm the materials guy. We take all of the electrochemical battery data. Is a good battery material, a bad battery material, how it performs. We put that in the AI. And what we've trained it to do is to basically work out the correlation between how we make it, the synthesis of that material, and correlate that between the performance of the material. And we go around the loop, and the AI tells us, okay, now we're going to make these 100 materials. And what we're doing is we're going around a slow loop with AI in the loop, and the aim is to it will basically be able to pick relationships between, let's say, which elements are in the battery material, or how you made it, or any other parameter. It will be able to tell you, and most importantly, it will guide us what to make next. Because you can say, well, human intuition should be able to do that, but actually the amount of data is so huge, a human brain cannot process that, but an AI can. Because it's not, it's got much wider capacity than a human brain. So that's how we're using it to see patterns, in a sense, that exist that you can't process yourself. It's also used a lot in image recognition, in medical imaging, to see if a tumor has grown or something like that. It can very quickly differentiate between two images. I'll tell you a quick thing. A colleague of mine was some pseudo-journalist, used the AI on his publication, it's a medical publication. A student had made a mistake where he'd reproduced the same image twice in the paper, in a medical image. And we know there's a lot of fraud, so everybody's very suspicious. This was a genuine mistake. By the way, my friend wasn't involved in the medical side. He did some spectroscopy, so it was nothing to do with his work. But this journalist approached the university in the UK. They said, this paper is a fraud because we found two images that look identical. Not that these got thousands of images to sort through, and a PhD student might have made a mistake, a genuine mistake. And the university investigated the academic because the AI had proved these images came from the same original image. In the past, a human person would not have noticed that because they were taken at different magnifications. But the AI, if you put an AI through it, it will tell you if any of those images were mistakenly the identical photograph. Okay? And now what is happening? We're on the dawn of AI juried by social media. And this is what happened to my friend, where this journalist, in inverted commas, and actually this is happening all the day because there's fraud going on when people are making up data, but there's also innocent mistakes, and they're all being treated as the same. And so we are in a really dangerous time for academics doing medical research in particular, where a little mistake like that can cost your reputation, and universities will investigate because they're afraid of the consequences of the scandal. And luckily my friend was found innocent because he actually didn't even have anything to do with that part of the work, but also because it was a genuine mistake. But this is the sort of thing that's happening. So I'm just going to warn you that it's not all good. But the potential for bias. This is Sam Altman, who founded, he owns OpenAI, that owns ChatGPT. Now, do you know when he put into the ChatGPT, he put Sam Altman as a cricket player in anime, which is the Japanese cartoon style, anime style. And what came out was Sam Altman in anime style wearing an Indian cricket shirt. The Indians were very happy, and everybody else said, why did it generate an Indian cricket shirt? And the reason is the data that it was trained on. If you think about the large financial success of India and PBL, in the social media and the media, is dominated by India, so it produced him in an Indian shirt. So the data is biased. Yeah, it's been programmed on biased data, so it's not perfect. If you put in, it's okay, don't worry. Here's another thing. Until last week, when the latest version of ChatGPT came out, if you typed in there, in the prompt, that I want you to produce a full glass of red wine, it was unable to produce a full glass of red wine on the image that was generated. And the reason is because all the available images, you never see a totally full glass of wine. You always see them half full or 2/3 full. You never get a full glass of wine. So it was unable to generate it. But then version 4 just came out, and it now can. So they've solved that biased thing, or whatever you want to call it. And so it's, oops, sorry.
I went to sleep.
Yeah, I went to sleep. I just got this laptop 2 days ago when I lost my other one, so I don't know what it does now. So look, the bias, IP concerns, loss of data privacy, lack of transparency. Where did the data, how did you get to this answer? There's some big concerns out there, and I'm sure some of you share them. Some of you are very horrified at the thought of AI coming in. So I want to try an experiment, if I have permission. Do I have permission? Don't worry, you've got nothing to lose. I was told this is where it's okay to talk about controversial things. I actually tried this earlier, so you're safe, don't worry.
That should be an S. It's not a T.
Oh yeah, okay, I can't spell, so I'm the thing is, it can cope with a bad spelling, so don't worry. So, why is... I could have thought of something else, but this one actually fascinated me, and I'll tell you why, what was really interesting. So I said, why is pervase no. Yes. Yes, right. Okay, you happy? Mm-hmm. If it's wrong, it doesn't matter because it doesn't care. Okay, let's read the answer. By the way, he's convinced because of his outspoken views on religious science, politics, education in Pakistan, a country where topics are obviously deeply sensitive. Here's a breakdown of why he stirs debate. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, you didn't know this was coming, did you? Sorry. Okay. Okay, we're going to narrow it down. Oh. So look, I'd like to get some feedback from the individuals, maybe. Okay, criticism of the religious influence in education. He's been very vocal about the negative impact of extremism. Absolutely fair, I think. Right. Okay, support for secularism. Critique of Pakistan's military and foreign policy. Media appearances. He often appears, writes op-eds, which brings in both praise and backlash. So he's dividing opinion. Do we agree? It was fair? Okay. Advocacy for science and rational inquiry. As a physicist, he promotes science. Controversy. His class with proponents of ideas like Islamic science or those who claim to divide validation for scientific theories. There we go. So, now, okay. Now, what got me was not what was written, because I kind of think it was a fair from a... Because it's so what I've got to say to you is, AI is designed by design, you will never get the same answer twice. Because that is, the way it works, it will never give you the same answer twice. But what interested me is this bit. Okay, so what it actually asked me last time was a different question. And it said, are you pro or, are you for or against the views of Hood Boy? And then I put my answer. And then it gave me some really nice things about why Hood Boy is great. He's great because... Now, if I said, no, I think he's mad, or I deeply disagree with him, then it would have given me loads of negative things about Professor Hood Boy. So it was getting me... it would have given me the different answers, the good or depending on my own personal views of Professor. Right? So it's... and I think this is and like I said, if I type this in again, I would definitely not get the same answer. If I typed in Jack and the Beanstalk, it would be phrased differently. The words would be different. The story might even be slightly different. So you will never get the same answer twice, ever. Try it at home, try anything like that, and you'll see what I mean. Thank you for being a good sport. I only thought of that about an hour before I came here. Okay, so this was the question it said to me last time. Would you like to learn more towards respecting his views, or do you find some of them off-putting? So it was just waiting for me to go down that hole or that hole, because it wanted to show how clever it was. So I found that highly illuminating. So, this is one for some of you teachers or people interested in how I can use AI. So the key thing to remember is you have this prompt. There are different ways of prompting. There's so many different ways now. I can't keep up with it. By the way, I am not a generative AI expert. I'm just somebody who's like you, interested and trying to learn about it. So if there's any questions about expertise, I'm probably not going to be your guy. This is really new to me. But this is the CRE version, so you can basically context, role, expectation. So the context, you're a high school teacher, in a high school that has the following demographics. You're the high school biologist is the role, and what's your expectation? I'll write a 15-minute biology plan. Now, some of you are looking at this thinking, surely a biology teacher should be able to write a 15-minute plan, okay? And this is where the controversy starts. But I'm just giving you an example of what it will do, and it will do a very good job. The thing I'm going to say multiple times today is The role of if you're going to go down this rabbit hole and use these sort of technologies, you are responsible for the final checks and balances. You might use it to create something that will give you a nice little opening starting point, covering the main points in a way better than you would have done. But you have an absolute duty of care to check and recheck that everything in that is correct. Otherwise, you definitely should not be doing your job. You cannot just take it as a black box. Remember, I said it's biased. You can't trust it. It's not perfect. It's not a black box. So, okay, another way you can generate, so you can use this PARTS acronym, P-A-R-T-S. So persona, who you are, your object. So the person, I'm a middle school history educator. So you can even tell it what level you want, because that's what it's working towards. The aim, state your objective, engaging a classroom activity. I just want an engaging classroom activity. What it's doing is it's giving you a creative ability that you may not have right now. But as you start to do this, maybe it will help you to become a better teacher and to, I really think it could help some people who just, maybe they haven't had the right teacher edge or whatever. I think there's a lot of people in Pakistan who are going to be using this, no matter what. We're not going to stop people. Recipients, 8th grade students. Theme, creating a collaborative digital timeline, incorporate storytelling and technology. You see, we've had multiple layers. It's a timeline, and we want to incorporate something. And then structure. And I just want it as an outline. So I just want an outline of what that's going to look like. So you can use this type of acronyms in something like, and I will talk about some of the different availabilities of different things. You can even use this refined prompt. Now what you do is you can give it examples. So we call it 0 or 1 shot. A 1 shot means 2 examples, a 0 means 1 example. So if you ask it a number of examples or prompts, generate a packing list for a summer camp trip with a lakeshore with 4 adults and 3 kids. I used it the other day. I said, I want to go to Lahore and I'm kind of interested in these following things in old Lahore. Can you organize an itinerary for me that lasts this many hours? And it came up with a brilliant one. It was a really, really good one. I don't think I would have done that route myself, and I know Lahore quite well. It was definitely better than I could have done. And I did actually, in the end, modify a little bit. And I think I got a good result, but it got me the answer really quick. That was the thing. Got me the answer really, really quick. I didn't, delegate, the Hammam, Wazir Khan Masjid, other places. You get me, right? You're on a little trek through there, and if you're not familiar, it helps you immensely. Here, the bottom example is you just give it 2 examples of what you've asked it to create. There's 2 examples on the bottom. There's also chain of thought. I like this because this is really interesting because what you're actually asking it to do is think this through step by step. So what you say, I'm a high school teacher, my students struggle with time management. What 5 strategies can I use in the classroom to help them? Think this through step by step. So what it will do is give you its reasoning why it's coming through with these answers. So it's explaining, it's not just giving you the answer, it's explaining the answer. I mean, that is got to be useful for people, because if you just want the answer and you just want to say, oh, just give me the answer, I'm not interested. But if you want to understand why it's saying that, the reasoning, then this you can do that. So the non-deterministic bit is what I said about it'll give you a different answer every time. It's called non-deterministic output. So I'm not going to read this slide, but it's basically not every flower is the same, and this is actually don't expect it to be perfect. Okay, so I'm going to now tell you how apparently teachers are using it. I'm thinking of using one of these. I'll be honest. I'm not going to say I'm not going to use it. There's one I want to use. I just want to try it actually. So there's one where I've got a set of lectures that I've been doing for years, and it's on renewable energy. And I never put in small nuclear because it's becoming quite a hot topic apparently. And one of my students said to me the other day, after the lecture course had finished, he said, oh, you didn't do anything on small nuclear. Why did you do wind and all these other things that you didn't do small nuclear? Partly because I don't consider nuclear renewable, because it produces nuclear waste. But that was a recommendation. So I would be very interested. And so what you can do is you can put your lecture notes into one of the AI softwares now, and it will basically look at your lecture notes, analyze them, and basically suggest things that you might be missing from your lecture notes that you might want to consider putting in your lecture notes to be more comprehensive on a particular subject. If you literally put them in, let it do its thing. So it's really about giving you some ideas and suggestions in that sense. I'm not trying to get it to, it can also make your lecture notes, by the way. I mean, it can do that as well, but I'm not going that far. I'm just trying to see if there's something that I should be doing, that I could be doing, that maybe I haven't thought of. You know, so I'm being very honest with you. And so where it becomes controversial is, now this one I quite like actually, and this is for people whether you've got mixed abilities. We have someone here who actually works with children with special needs. If you have a class with really mixed abilities, what it can do is, let's say you want to have some sort of differentiated lessons. If you say, I want this grade child, and I want to have high, medium, and low ability, I want you to produce me a set of notes or something like that, or content, it will do that for the same information. It will create 3 tiers of difficulty. It could create sets of questions where they're testing the hardest questions for those kids, you know, so it will literally put them in order for you and say, these are the hard ones. And so that could be useful for, again, this is all about time. So I know we're going to have some of you in the audience who are going to say, you know, this is heresy. Why are we encouraging teachers to do this? I'm not encouraging anyone. I'm just telling you this exists. This is here. This is going to be the future in some way. I'm not encouraging plagiarism or anything like that. But if it can help you, for example, do some headings for a lesson plan or something, this thing can do it, and you still have the final say. Do not put it in front of the kids unless you haven't checked it yourself. But it can now, you can now get it to do rubrics for you and do grading and feedback. Lesson planning, I've already said, and creating interactive, more interesting things in terms of during the lesson that you can do. So yeah, and there's this thing called Co-Grader that actually will it will generate the rubric for you, and it will actually mark the outcome and give feedback to the students, which is totally taking away the job of a teacher, basically. But again, I do say to you, if you did that, you would have to check everything, and you'd have to make sure, and maybe you should really check if it's working, because not everybody's good at giving feedback. Some people are pretty lousy. It might teach some of our teachers how to do feedback. You know, I can see some benefits. There are some teachers who are terrible at feedback. They will literally write the bare minimum because they've got to mark 100. If this thing can do it much faster, the teacher can learn as well, maybe, right? How to do the feedback better. I'm always trying to look at it on the positive, by the way. I'm just trying not to look at the negative too much because it's not going to go away. Okay, how students, this is a reality. And by the way, plagiarism is top of the list probably, right? But I'm not putting that there because I'm trying to just focus on the good bits. What they can do now, if you have an academic paper, it'll summarize the academic paper for you. Put it in, it summarizes it. So students looking through a lot of papers, it can help them with that. They can ask questions about it. It can produce a podcast with 2 people talking. So let's say I've got a paper, one of my papers, I don't know, let's think one of my early papers. If I chuck that in, it would just have 2 people talking to each other. Hey, this is this work by Professor Darr is about nano this, whatever. And they just start and say, oh, how does that work? Oh, well, it works like this. So, oh, how do they make those particles? It makes them by using continuous hydrotherapy. So it literally starts a conversation. And this has come in, I don't think many people are using it, but when it came in, it was shockingly good. Somebody sent me a message saying, oh my God, I've just converted one of my papers. I think it was a bit like a fad, this one, the one where it starts talking about your papers. But it can do it, of course, in a school child level. So it could do it not only at the academic level, but it could do it at sort of high school level. So that's the advantage. You could set the level, you see, and it could put it in very simple English. So, you know, and we say the ultimate is your grandma level, right? If you can explain it to your grandma, then that's the ultimate. So where students are using it, if they're doing an essay, and I know kids who do this, they will use it to get some headings, because where children often suffer, they have writer's block. A lot of kids, and there seems to be a high prevalence of ADHD diagnosis these days. A lot of kids complain of not being able to they just get right, you know, they get very stressed with the idea of, I've got to do this massive essay. But if they can start breaking it down into headings, that can often get them started. Again, you may say that's cheating. I would say that's a useful tool to get the student to be able to concentrate on actually writing the essay and not getting writer's block. It can even, you know, it can improve, analyze data. You can start to create code with it now. It's just got so amazing for coders. I'm not a coder. I don't know how that works. So here's some examples of ones. These can provide, Petal is one of the ones. Most of these now are either free or they require, to use it properly, they require some sort of subscription, okay? Now this is just a small selection. There are so many out there and they're growing daily. There's spin-outs coming. So Jenny will generate essay outlines. It'll improve quality, manage citations. So a lot of these are really summarizing and helping with references. On the art side, some of these, I mean, I've used Night Cafe. We actually use Night Cafe in our STEAM training just to show people how AI works. And you can literally say, you get some weird images. So it's quite, I think it's fascinating how these things are just changing art. So a lot of these are just designed to create images very quickly. And, you know, a lot of my friends send me joke images of myself in certain situations, you know, in a car or something. And sometimes it's actually, some of the images, I don't look too great in them. So I sometimes get, because they're able to generate this, it's kind of an easy way to bully your friends, if you know what I mean, politely. So, negative issues, finally. And there'll be more than this. Plagiarism is obvious. These things consume huge amounts of energy and water. Okay, the clouds are cloud compute. The whole AI to just generate that takes billions, millions of dollars, and huge amounts of energy. So it's not environmentally friendly. When you put information, like let's say I put my lecture notes in, I am helping the AI because I've just given my lecture notes to it, right? I'm helping to create the product, right, for free. And what about my IP and the intellectual property of my notes? You see? So this is going to be the issues going forward. Bias, unfair outcomes. You know, people with brown skin, you know, being disadvantaged in recruitment. If you start using, imagine if you use it in recruitment, and it may have some negative biases against people from minorities. You know, we don't know how these things are trained. There's no transparency how they're trained. So we don't know what they're going to favor. You know, white, middle-class males, maybe, I guess. I don't know. Now, what happens is if it starts to try to, because you've got to check the accuracy, it might be taking information from faked content. You see, that's where the problem lies. If there's a lot of fakes that get reproduced, and then that becomes part of the training set, it is possible that could be corrupted. And of course, where's the copyright privacy? It's pretty much non-existent because it's taking stuff and you have no idea where it came from because it's just too vast space. Okay, I'm just going to switch now and stop talking about AI because frankly, it's just too scary. I want to talk about the great work of Madhya Sajid, my chair of UPSIGN, the current chair. I'm the deputy chair. Her and others, I should say the person who helped me with some of these notes doesn't want to be mentioned, so I'm actually just plagiarizing somebody else's lecture, by the way. I just say that for transparency. So some of this content is from my colleague who doesn't want to be named, and I'm going to talk about the inclusive STEAM pedagogies. If there are any spelling mistakes, it's because I was doing half these slides this morning due to sheer pressure. Okay, so we all know Bloom's taxonomy, I hope? Yeah? So again, so normally we think of, you know, when we teach, when we do ratta, chalk and talk, or whatever we do, the main thing is we're trying to get the students to remember the content, aren't we? That's the first thing. And usually what we'll do is we'll give them some homework. So they'll remember it in the lesson, and then we'll give them some homework. And then maybe they'll understand it, or maybe they'll apply it in the homework. And you know, maybe they'll even get to create it at the higher level. So as we get higher and higher, it's more often very difficult to do some of this stuff, right? This bit, just teaching it and hoping and trying to get them to remember it, that's kind of what teachers are very focused on nowadays. Just get them to remember it so they can somehow pass the exam. And I've been to places where that's really all they're thinking at that level. So there's Bloom's taxonomy. I'm going to talk about the flipped classroom. So when the pandemic came, of course, everything went online. And you know, we were trying to teach people online and do lectures online, and everything became online. And then after the pandemic, especially in the West, a lot of people started to go to flipped. So this meant that they had content online, but where they were actually giving the content to the students. Unfortunately, in the beginning, it was long lectures because that's what they had left over from the pandemic. But I'll tell you how they eventually sorted out the online material, made it better. And then what they did was they had, after we could meet each other in person in the lecture theatre, then they tried to do something in the class which related to the online content. Okay, so they flipped. So in other words, the content was delivered online somehow, and then when they came in the classroom, what they would essentially do, let's go back to Bloom's taxonomy for a minute. So traditionally, if they're doing the remembering and understanding outside of the classroom, then when they come into the class, what can we do? Well, we can start doing some of this. You see, because the traditional model, like I said, is you remember in the classroom and then you do the homework, yeah? But what about remembering at home and then doing this stuff in the class? It's the opposite. It's flipped. So that is what flipped learning is. But nowadays, young people, they have not got the good attention span. So what we do is we call it chunked. Chunked. Usko chota chota karte hain. So instead of a 45-minute lecture, and let's face it, in a 45-minute lecture of mine, probably 30 minutes is waffle, and maybe there's 15 minutes of actual really good content. So when we chunk, we just take the really good, important stuff, and we put it there to learn. Okay, so they have to view it, online videos, online whatever, online content. They look at it, and someone's going to say, but students won't do that. Well, we'll talk about that as well. Okay, they're not going to, or they can't. I understand. We'll talk about that. But the aim is, they look at it, it's chunked, it's digestible. Some of them will look at it in the middle of the night, because that's what time some students like to look at material. They don't want to look at it during our normal hours. No, I know kids who they look at it in midnight when they finish whatever they would do, going to the gym or whatever, and they can just access it all hours. And that is what modern kids do. They access all hours. It's chunked, so it doesn't mean they have to spend a huge amount of time concentrating. They can get it, digest it, and start to remember it. And when they come into the class, we can have more activities where the teacher is actually guiding them in some kind of activities. I'll just quickly talk through how it works. So flipped, it's not a new idea. It's basically online plus in-class activity. And what we can do, so here's the thing. Imagine half the class has not read the online stuff. And I always poll my students at the beginning, how many of you have read the online stuff? Okay, about half of the hands go up. That's what happened this year. I was like, that's not good enough. That's really terrible. So then I said, okay, well, you haven't read it, but we're going to do the next bit, and that is we get them into small groups, okay? We get them into small, even in a lecture theatre like this, I've actually got people into small groups, because some of the lecture theatres are terrible where we are. They're just massive. They're not like with little tables, which is what I love to have. They're like this, and I'll say to these three, right, you're a group, and what they'll do is they will, some of them have done it, read it, and some of them didn't. So it's peer-to-peer learning. So the weaker ones who don't get it, they're assisted by the stronger ones, right? And you say, why should they have to suffer from these people who didn't do it? Of course, there's an element of that. But peer-to-peer learning is a thing, and it's something that's one way of trying to ensure that the overall objectives are achieved. Remember, it's about, did they leave the class having understood what they were doing and how they got there, remember? It's not about whether they followed it or not, okay? Because you can't force, if somebody's not going to do it, they're not going to do it. And that's the way we believe. So I basically said, look, let's go to the pictures. So beforehand, they do a bit of activity. During, we apply, so we're now practicing applying the key concepts, and we give some feedback as well, because what I'll do is when they worked in a small group for 5 minutes, I'll set them a series of objectives and challenges we've worked, and then I'll get a spokesperson from each group and say, all right, you discussed this, what do you think? What do you think? And we'll work like that, and then we get a collective from the group, you see. So the ones who are a bit slow or didn't bother, I say slow to learn in terms of didn't do the work, they're going to be lifted up, okay, in the live session. And then, of course, you can check afterwards. I sometimes have an online quiz, which I ask them to do again. It's up to them. I'm not checking that assessment. That's for them to do so they know that they are progressing right. So I do an online quiz, but there are other things you could do outside of the classroom as a kind of check. And that student gives them the feeling that they are actually getting somewhere. So what we've done is we've flipped. Looking at beforehand, coming in and doing some of this stuff, some of the analyzing data, evaluating, creating, as opposed to the traditional model, as we've already shown. Okay, I'm just going to quickly move to problem-based learning, and then I'll probably wrap up, okay? Because how am I doing for time? We're good? Okay. Right, so problem-based learning. Are you all familiar with problem-based learning? Anybody, you all heard of problem-based learning? Have you ever done any PBL? No, well, you're a first-year teacher, so I can't expect you to do that. Okay. So this was actually 1960s or 1950s. McMaster in America, university was pioneered this, and mainly with medical students. If you think about it, a lot of if you're a medic and you're often working in groups to solve a problem of the diagnosis, and you're often having a discourse and a discussion about that. So this is solving problem using a group-based methodology, okay? And there are different ways you can do it. And let's talk about what they are. And by the way, there are different styles of learning, right? So some people are visual, some people do by listening, some people like to read books. I don't read books. I hate reading books. I've got massive shelves full of books I've never read. I keep buying them though, because I want to be a reader, but I'm not. And some people learn by doing, physically doing. So there are different learning styles, and we have to keep that into account when we do our activities. So PBL, the basics of PBL is basically, there's not really much of a structure. And I'll just tell you in a nutshell how it works. So basically, one of the ways you can do it is you can set the problem, and then the students have to work out what knowledge they require to solve a problem. And it can be quite open-ended, unstructured. You can give them some of the information at the beginning, and some of it they can get halfway through, which might be more detail. So the problem kind of changes halfway through as well. So it's not the same problem what it was at the beginning. So working on a problem, what they go through is a process. It's a group exercise. They have different roles in the group. Those roles can switch. Now we call this inclusive education because particularly we know that girls in school are very quiet often in the class, where the boys are very noisy and they dominate the class. This way, everybody has a voice, an equal position, and it gets rotated. So the girls are not getting left out, especially in STEAM subjects. We need more females in science or STEAM subjects. We need to increase the numbers of females in those because we have a big shortage across, even in the UK. So you've got group activities, and these are largely unstructured. They're working in groups, and they share and distribute tasks, and they promote inquiry within the students because they have to sort of try and see where the knowledge gaps are, and then they have to fill them. But they're working as a team. And of course, if you think about it, much of industry, they're working in teams. Okay, they're working in teams with different roles. They come together to solve big problems, whether it's some sort of design problem or whatever. So they're not just, I like this last one, they don't just learn, they learn how to learn. So it's sort of very self-guided within the group, right? So the classic style is that you give the problem at the beginning. So you have a facilitator, that's the teacher, say. Now, the important role, this is the facilitator, I'm going to talk about what the role of that person is as well. So we give them a problem. Like the medical side, it would be a patient case, that the patient is having these symptoms and, they're sweating profusely like I am right now, and they are, getting wobbly legs. And so that's the problem, that's a patient case. And we don't give them any prior teaching necessarily. It doesn't have to be. So this one, the teaching bit will come during this exercise. So what they need to do is they need to figure out what we need to learn. Maybe they'll go to AI to figure out what the main things they might need to know are, by the way. I'm just pointing that out. But in the classic form, they have to look at the problem and say, okay, we need to know about what are the possible causes of wobbly legs or profuse sweating. What are the known areas? So we need to go and learn about that. And we need to. So they go and research it, and then they come back and have meetings, and then they go away, and then they come back. So this is it works in cycles. And so this is a sort of self-directed by the team, and it involves critical thinking, group discussion, group dynamics. So the example I came up with a couple of days ago was, if I said, okay, teams, go and design a sustainable home using, and explain the physics behind energy efficiency. Okay, that was a challenge that Professor Hoodboy might want to set, I don't know, in his physics class. And so really what you've got to do is, to design this sustainable home, you've got to think about concepts of thermal insulation, renewable energy generation, solar panels, wind turbines for the home. You need to think about sustainable materials, use of wood perhaps, rather than single-use plastics or thermoplastics which cannot be recycled. So you have to think about what sustainable mean, by the way? What is the definition of sustainable? Okay, does anyone know, by the way? So the classic definition, do you know, madam? Go on, tell me, go on. Aja. You speak up, please. So what's sustainable development? Do you have a definition? Absolutely. So the 1987 Brundtland Commission, She probably knows this, but she's too shy. She's gone all shy. Okay, I'll just tell her. Which you can confirm to me when I tell you. So the 1987 Brooklyn Commission, a UN Commission, said that sustainable development means the ability to provide for the needs of the current generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So growing trees, if we grow trees, we use wood, we grow trees. We keep doing that, we can provide wood for future generations. If we start using metals which we mine out of the ground, we are digging it up, the future generations, well, maybe they can use it if we're recycling. So, Gigi?
Now she's adding to what you are saying.
Oh, please do. We should. We can have a good conversation later, maybe. So look, you would have to go and find that definition first to understand what is meant by sustainable. That would be the first thing you do, because if I said sustainable, you need to know what it means. You can't just have an idea. So then when you then apply this to the definition, and you apply that to the materials, then you say, okay, is this sustainable or not? That's the question you're asking. But then you were also talking about Newton's laws, knowledge of thermodynamics, heat transfer, electricity. I mean, then you get into so many subjects, but it's for the students to work out what they need to know. And then this involves a lot of collaboration, communication, and design. And then, for example, I could say in my class, I want you to do build a model, and then I want you to do a presentation in front of the class. I mean, this is a very simple, obvious thing. Do a presentation, build a model out of plastic cups and stuff like that, and basically now present your thing and explain each of the concepts and the physics behind it. So, they would have to explain it. They would have to talk about cost. Okay, these panels we're using because they're cheaper on the market than these panels. So then you get in, because sustainable also means low cost or affordability as well. It's not just about. So look, they have to justify the decisions using physics concepts or other concepts related to the question. Now, this is the difference between when you give them all the knowledge at the beginning, and then you say, "Acha, bacha, isko solve karo," right? So there's a difference. So that is the classic PBL method, and there's another one which is the opposite of that almost, and what that does is you basically give them. Oh, pardon me. So the after the class rather than before. So the before the class means you give the problem before they then go and learn it. After class, case-based learning, for example, you give them a case, but you give them some initial teaching. Okay, you give them a bit. And then problems are a little bit more guided. You're trying to get a certain objective. It's not so open-ended. So those are the extreme cases, and you can have something in the middle as well. Okay, it's up to you. And so, yeah, that's problem-based learning. Now, the role of the teacher. You know how tempting it is? I'm a bit like that, where I know the answer, and they don't know the answer. And I really want to get them to the answer. Don't be the sage on the stage, right? Be the guide on the side. In other words, your job is to point them in the right direction. If they're going off track, point them towards the right direction, but don't say, this is rubbish, or don't do any of that. Just nudge them. You might give a little suggestion which may get their interest in the meeting. So that's how it works. So no giving of answers, and you want to try and get them to there eventually. Okay, so just going to quickly talk about the roles. Manager, skeptic, recorder, energizer, summarizer. So the manager is sort of like the chairperson who chairs the meeting. Now those roles will switch. Every time you have a meeting, they'll switch. Then we can have people putting forward, so the skeptic, everybody loves the skeptic. They will put forward ideas as sort of quiz and question everything that's discussed. If you come up with something, they'll sort of challenge it to see if it holds up. So that's their role, remember. They're not just a person who's very negative. That's their role, and they have to fulfill that role. And then somebody has to write down the ideas proposed and make sure that everybody understands what the idea is. Again, this is the peer learning, making sure everybody's included and nobody's left behind. We're not doing that. And then the energizer, summarizer. So what they'll do is, if things start to fall a bit flat and people start getting bored of each other, they start to summarize and try and reinvigorate the process, because it is an iterative process. And what we can often say in PBL, these 3 cycles, when they have the meeting, okay, first of all, we get them to do this. We say, what do we know right now in terms of, we know the challenge and we've learned some things last week, but what do we need to know? So we need to make a second list. Is abhi kya abhi nahi pata kiya? Or what extra do we think today we need to go and find out for the next meeting? And then they summarize that. to say, have we solved the problem? Where are we in terms of along the way of solving this, of completing the exercise? That's a summary. And if you go through that process every time you meet, you're going to make, inshallah, progress to get to the answer. So I think this is my last slide, actually. I hope I wasn't too long. I hope, and I know there's going to be some people who have got something to say, and I can't wait to hear. AI is coming, just like when the calculator came, and everybody said, children will not be able to do any maths anymore because the calculator is here. AI is coming. There's nothing you can do to stop it. We need to make sure that it's used responsibly. We need to have better plagiarism checkers. It's going to be there to assist, to speed up, to guide. You have to check as the teacher. It's your responsibility. You must check things. We need to understand, so just talking about, so we need to work smarter. I think that's the take-home for AI. Let's talk about the STEM, what this new pedagogy system that I spoke about. I didn't even talk about team-based learning or some of the other stuff. There's more stuff we do. In 2 days, our brilliant teachers pack in a lot of work, a lot of energy. It's interactive workshop. Nobody goes to sleep. You're up and down. These ladies will testify they were supporting our training. It's a really brilliant exercise, 2 days. We are looking for funding right now from British Council and from HEC. We had very good conversations. The gateway's coming. We are looking next year to expand into 4 big hubs where they'll have a hub and spoke. So you'll have a lead university, and other universities from nearby will come, and we will train 1,000 people a year, and we will produce master trainers, because that is how we're going to sustain in Pakistan these sharing the knowledge of latest pedagogies, because the children need to be enthused. At the moment, if they're not engaging with the teacher, is it the student or is it the teacher? We all know this, right? We've all had bad teachers that put us off subjects. I had a very good chemistry teacher, Mr. Powell. Okay, he was the best. He was the best teacher by a mile, because all my other teachers weren't that great. And I still to this day salute him, and I am still in contact with him. We need to understand our role. If the child is failing, and it's to do with you and your teaching methods, you're not engaging the students. If a children is naughty, in the class, give them responsibility. Try and get them in and keep them busy, so they've got nothing to do. They're not got nothing to do. And I'm sure our expert here in special needs children will have other strategies as well. So look, we need to understand our roles, and we are ultimately spelling mistake. Sorry. That's why I said I just did this today. We must check our slides. Thank you all very much. Sorry about forgetting to put the microphone there. But I didn't pace up and down like I normally do, so I stuck there. Hacking. So, does anybody want the mic?
They'll bring a mic.
Achha. I'll have some water. I bet my head is really shiny. I bet I'm getting a full...
Thanks, Jawwad. Thanks for a great lecture. And I should have said, Nair should have said, or you should have said, that you are on the advisory board of the Black Hole. We're
Great.
very proud and happy to have you there.
My honor, my honor.
It's hard to disagree with anything that you said. But I don't think AI is going to do anything to substantially change things in Pakistani education, where the requirements are totally different. Unless one completely restructures education, starting with get rid of the Ministry of Education and all the idiots who are in it, fire the Minister of Education, throw him out, tell him to go somewhere else, and start teaching our children the way you teach children in Britain, or the way kids are educated in Singapore or Hong Kong or wherever. Here, we require our children to simply memorize and to reproduce. And that gets them nowhere. That gives us the lowest standard of education anywhere in the world. I'm not optimistic about your training Pakistani teachers because we have actually here in the black hole a substantial amount of experience. And I'm talking about physics and math. You know, the softer a subject is, the easier it is to teach. In Pakistan, physics and math is 0, which explains the enormous difference between us and India or between us and Vietnam. Okay, because we do not challenge students with problems. We do not have teachers capable of that. So that's why we had a teachers training program here in the Black Hole.
Very good.
And here is the thing that I loved about what you said. Said, you must have an inverted classroom. Exactly what we had. So, look, there's an enormous amount of pedagogical material in the physical sciences, and we guided we had teachers take a 48-week course here in the Black Hole. We gave them 48 modules. Each module they had to master at home.
Yeah. Amazing.
So some would come from Lahore, some from Islamabad. And the thing that we would do on every weekend is we would put them up on the board over here and say, explain the concept of entropy, of mathematical continuity, of this or that or that. They would have to explain. Then we would then say, solve this problem. If you've really understood it, tell us where that came from. And then, as you said, the weaker ones help the stronger ones. There's a sense of community that develops over there. And then, you know, it was not just 2 or 3 teachers over here who would be asking them questions. We invited the public. Anyone who's interested in learning this stuff, you come and you ask the teachers, the people who are being trained to explain this, solve this problem, do this, that. You know what those teachers said when the course was over? They said, this was transformational for us.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can train teachers. This is fine, this AI stuff is okay, it's good. It'll do some good, I hope, but this is the way to do it.
First of all, I applaud you for the work you've done. I think you're trying to set amazing standards of these teachers, and they probably are world-class teachers now. I'm going to answer that several ways. The bit I forgot to, before I answer that, I'm going to just talk about something I forgot to mention: inclusive classrooms. The culture within schools and teachers has to change, and we actually in the STEM teacher training program we also talk about कि आपका जो role क्या है teacher होने के, you know, what is your role as a teacher, and we really get them to reflect and really think about their own educational journeys, what sort of teachers they want to be. So we do all of this stuff that I haven't spoken about. It's much deeper than just giving them some tools, actually. It's also making them, it's almost like they do a lot of self-reflection, and you know, you have to be there to see it. We are not, so our approach is that we're not here to teach you physics or anything. That you either know or you don't know. Yeah. What we're here to do, we assume you know your subject, which is probably a wrong assumption you're saying, and I get that. What we are doing is giving you the tools that if you know your subject, at least on some level, or even if you don't, you have the chance to at least produce something that is significantly more engaging with the students. You as a teacher will become more engaging with your students. When I taught, I actually asked my students about flipped classroom. I said, do all your other lectures give flipped classroom? They said yes. I said, do you like the flipped classroom? And my feedback has never been better since I did the flipped classroom, because they love the activities side of things. They become engaged in the lesson. They have no reason to fall asleep because I've given them tasks to do, not just sit there and listen to me. Okay. And the other thing I want to say is that the internet has become a great enabler. You know, I do not see why, with the presence of the internet, knowledge is no longer hidden from many of us. If you are, it now has opened up knowledge to everybody. So the knowledge is there. This AI stuff that we're talking about, even if you, in the worst case, let's imagine, and this is a horrible thing to think, let's say you don't even know biology and you're a biology teacher and you don't know it. you've got a chance to learn, use the AI to get at least to a level that you can produce content that is probably going to be much better than you could probably do. Now that is a reality, and it is open to everybody. Even if you're rubbish at teaching a subject, it is open to you. You have no excuse now. It's not the right way to learn to be a biology teacher, right? Maybe if you're crap at it and you design a lesson, you go and check from a colleague who actually knows biology. But at the end of the day, because we know the variability of teaching in this country is vastly different. It goes from somebody who probably doesn't even know something to somebody who is produced by Professor Hoodboy's team. So we have to look at I look at numbers. I'm about impact. Okay, it's about impact. Pakistan में कितनी universities है? How many? Let's have a quiz. How many universities? 300. How many of those are proper universities? In your okay, no, wrong question. How many of those are research doing? No, proper wrong question. How many of them claim to do research? A third of them. I was going to say, do they do research? But he would have said none of them. Okay, a third of them claim to do research. How many lecturers at university level do you think there are? Never mind affiliated colleges, that's another thing. Can you estimate based on how many lecturers are there in universities in Pakistan? 300 universities. Lecturers. Yeah, times by number of giving lectures. 30,000. Okay, so what I'm saying is 30,000 lecturers, and that's just at university level, not affiliated colleges, because that's probably many times more, right? We're getting into big numbers here. But how do you solve a problem that is countrywide and vast? And all I'm saying is, we're not going to solve it. We're not going to give enough people that pedagogy training. But what we are trying to do is produce master trainers who basically can carry on this program through. We're not in this. I mean, yours is just next level. I mean, we're not going to try anything like that. The point is, we want people in country who can deliver this stuff. It shouldn't be us coming here. So people will do it many times with us. We'll train them, inshallah, in different regions. And so we're using the trainers approach. And of course, so just to finish, what I'm really saying is, because I've just waffled for about 5 minutes, what I'm really saying is the tools are there. You don't have to be a genius to use them, because generative AI doesn't need any special knowledge or coding or anything like that. So it's now accessible for anybody, whether you're a good teacher or a bad teacher. The tools are there. You can produce the content. You can get it checked by somebody else. He's looking at me really badly. You can get somebody to check the content. I'm not encouraging you to cheat. What I'm saying is if people don't know the subject, they have to produce content. They're teaching stuff, which is probably, it's just... We could have a long argument. I'll stop there. But do you kind of understand what I'm saying? It's accessible now. And there's no excuse now to be a bad teacher if you know the basic. You have the toolbox, no matter how you were trained. So I'm going to stop there.
Okay, I'm not going to take time. But the bad teacher and the fraud teacher and the fraud professor, they get the same pay. In fact, more pay than those who know the subject and actually like it. So the incentive system and the punishment system over here, they are inverted.
What about the ghost professor?
The ghost schools, yeah, and the ghost professors, they come
they get
maybe
paid.
once a week. They get paid.
They get paid.
But even more, those who produce fraud papers.
Yes.
They make a stash.
I can't think of anyone.
Hi, I'm going to talk because I am a school teacher. I've been teaching for over 30 years. And prior to AI, my official working week was 37.5 hours a week. But because I was a passionate teacher, I used to spend 55 hours a week creating lesson plans, creating those differentiated resources. And about a year and a half ago, I've moved to AI. And I am going to give you some benefits of AI. You still have to know your subject knowledge. You still have to be a passionate teacher. You still need to differentiate and use adaptive methods for every child in your class. However, you can generate that through AI. And now I have cut my preparation time for my class from working 55 hours a week down to 30 hours a week. 37 and a half hours a week.
I congratulate you. That's amazing.
But that is just, and I am not a fraud teacher. What I do is I differentiate. So what you have to do is in the response, you have to make sure you have to contextualize for your individual student in your class. So when Dr. Jawwad talked about high, middle and low, I take it even further. I look at each of the children's reading ability, because every child's reading ability and cognition and understanding is different. And you have to base it around that first and create those resources. So I have reduced my learning and my preparation time for at least 30% every week now. But I do not cheat. And the assessment for learning has to be differentiated to the individual student. And that's where you can generate the AI information using assessment for learning, or you call it here, you call it a different name
Well, we
here.
call it assessment learning. Yeah.
Rubric, that's it, rubric.
Rubric. Oh, you can call it.
So
Can I just?
it is coming. It's not going to get rid of the teachers. We still need the human approach.
Can I say you are dealing with special needs children, though? That's why you have to go to that level. You are going, mashallah, you're very, obviously, but your
But we
school,
should be doing that in mainstream.
No, we should. But what I'd say is if you're dealing with special needs, then you have to individualize. I mean, would you agree with me that it's absolutely vital
But we
because
should
it's
do
such
it
a big...
in all schools. This is where we're
Absolutely.
failing.
Well, we've got to start for. We've got to make a start and get it at least for some. We've got to let's make a start, and then inshallah one day we could go to the utopia that you talk about. But you got to walk before you learn to run. You would agree, right? And in Pakistan, they're still at the walking phase. I think in people would. I'd like to get your views. I mean, I'm. Please, thank you.
Thank you for a very informative lecture. How do you compare DeepSeek to ChatGPT, and how better is the paid version of ChatGPT than the free one?
I'm going to swerve that question because, as I said, I am not an AI expert. Oh yeah, if you can, please do.
For education purposes, I use DeepSeek. There's not much difference. What you do with the paid version, I think it's about $30 a month. It just retains the information. But for education purposes, I would use DeepSeek.
Thank you. Thank you for saving me. But I'm not an expert in AI. I don't want to sell any particular brand of AI.
Thank you very much. Few comments just on Dr. Parvez Hudbai's very pessimistic view of AI's use. Maybe the possibility of teachers creating curiosity for every type of student in the class, that was really impossible in Pakistan. Now ChatGPT with its tools, DeepSeek with its tools, and a lot of abundance of AI's largest data sets, they have given the possibility to a good teacher. I totally 100% agree with Dr. Parvez that if you are a fraudulent person, whatever you are, even you are a father, you are a brother, you are a mother, you are not a teacher, you are a fraudulent person. A person with good character who is given the duty of teaching, today enormous potential is there that you can create lessons which can teach every type of student. I'm not talking about the special needs students. You can modelize, you can create videos, you can photograph, you can give so many examples. So the optimistic view of our situation, where we have different set of problems, I 100% agree with Dr. Parvez. The problem is that AI is there today with its huge potential to solve few of our problems, which is if a child with less resources, a lot of curiosity, happens to reach to beyond skies, limit beyond skies, that means are available to him. And this is thanks to AI's open source versions, which are everybody in the browser. Now, whether we achieve at national level, it is true, everything needs to be changed. If the change has been in our reach, yes. With AI, with the pervasibility of the knowledge, and with tools AI is providing me today to plan from the level of students, teacher, availability of every type of knowledge base, That has shortened the distance where we want to reach. And inshallah ta'ala, one day, I'm very sure, more people like Dr. Pervez Hudbai will come, grow, make more effort, and we will have more, better future, inshallah.
Thank you. I really deserves a round of applause. Thank you. Well said. Very well said, sir.
And I am a proud student of Dr. Pervez, 35 years back.
Marshall.
Thank you. That's fascinating. So I can see the benefits of AI and how it can fill in some of the gaps, and it can be a good resource, especially when we have a system that's challenged, that's under-resourced. And what I worry about is that, we have a problem with the basics, right? So basic, we have, like inadequate teacher training, we have poor quality teaching, we have a emphasis on memorization. So we have a problem with the basics. So what I worry is that this is some other stuff. So if this gets introduced and this gets being used, we may go further away from fixing the basics, because it mixes things up and mixes in a whole new sort of series of ingredients. So that's the worry. So
I agree.
how does one?
I think you have to
prevent
categorize.
that?
You have to categorize these things that you say are wrong. So some things are cultural. If your teacher was this way with you, you're this way with your teacher, with your kids, and it's like a form of abuse, perpetual abuse. For example, some schools, they don't like children to question the teacher because उस्ताद को आप कुछ नहीं question नहीं कर सकते, आपने बस पढ़ना है. So these are, dare I say, cultural? Do you think they're cultural? I think they're cultural. This not ability in UK. Any student can question me in any class at any point, and I usually have two methodologies for coping with that. Is if I don't know the answer, I will give my best guess or a guesstimate, and I will say, but I will check that and come back to you by the next lecture. I never have a problem with somebody questioning me something I don't know the answer. I'm not embarrassed by it, because this is due to personal embarrassment, due to not knowing the answer, right? And you just have to. So this is a training Actually, this is a training problem. If the teacher has never received any personal CPD, continuing personal development, they've not received the training on how to cope with that situation. They don't know how to engage the class because they only know ratta, chalk and talk. I mean, this is why this STEM teacher training these pedagogies is important. They're engaging, inclusive. So those problems can be solved by training. I went to a university recently and I said, who does your staff training? And they said, we don't have anybody. Nobody does our staff training. We're too small. So that, I was just saying, you really want to get someone who does staff training. Your staff development is, even if it's one person in this university, get a person. The value, it's just not valued by people who should know better. So to me, the biggest issue is the teachers not understanding what their role is. They should create a safe and inclusive environment. जब बच्चा डरता नहीं, तो he will learn, or she will learn. जब बच्चा डरता है, he or she will not learn. And this is the first thing we need to think about. We should be making the students feel welcome. They should come in feeling ready to learn. They should be fed, right? Agar bacha bhukha hai, he's not going to learn. He or she is not going to learn. There's so many factors here which are to do with location. They're not actually the other issues like plagiarism. Everybody has those. So yes, it will bring new problems, but it will also offer new opportunities. It's a double-edged sword. Madam bhi hai. No, after you. Madam, मैं कहता हूँ आपके बाद मैं कह रहा हूँ.
I just want to add to what you were saying. I think as a system we feel that a teacher needs to understand her role. AI is just going to support her to have information and to gain that knowledge. but she needs to understand what her role is in the classroom. She's just a support and a facilitator. The day the teacher realizes that role of hers, the learning experience of a learner is going to increase. That's the key, and the teachers during the CPDs and all that, that's something we need to instill in the teachers, and we need to make them understand that. And AI is going to be a support instead of a book. It's online. Also, as a teacher, we must understand that, as you said, we don't know everything. This generation knows more than us, and we need to keep up that pace. If a student in my class or a group of students, we are having an activity or a discussion and they know something which I don't know, I must accept that I'll get back to you people. So we are still in that phase that the teacher knows everything and the teacher is not a facilitator and a support in the class. That's something we must understand.
Thank you. That was a great perspective. I'll tell you a story that happened to me. I was teaching about my green chemistry lectures that I give every year. And one of the students pointed out to me in front of the whole class that she pointed me to a website on YouTube which it was turning waste into products. वो जो chip oil नहीं होता जो ज़ाया होता है वो उसको fuel बना रहे हैं. And she said, sir, there's a website there's a YouTube and it has hundreds of examples of waste to product. And I was just blown. I didn't know about that. So the students were telling me, because they're on social media and they're interested and they read around, they have time to go on social media. And what AI will do, they can enhance the student's own learning. So, okay, YouTube, it's lots of examples there for the student found that site, and now that's part of my online, I put that on the pre-recommended, not the essential, but recommended to go to these waste to product stuff. And then when they come into the class, I might give them an example. I say, okay, let's look at the life cycle of this. So how, if we take a waste product to something, so we'll do a class exercise around something that they might have seen on YouTube, and we can discuss it in more depth in the class and analyze it and criticize and look at the pros and cons. I think students now have unprecedented access to knowledge, better than the teacher. They can use AI, to tell them if they're doing the right thing when they don't have access to the teacher, remember. It's not a crime for them to do that. We shouldn't punish them for going and trying to get some feedback from AI to say, oh, maybe this bit's a bit weak. It will do that. It can. I'm not saying it's going to replace the teacher. Actually, somebody said, there's actually a quote, and I didn't use it, I should have used it. The chap who invented, one of the inventors, fathers of AI, he said, AI, within X years, AI will replace teachers. Filhal, it hasn't, and it's not, there'll always be, I'm guessing, a role for teachers. Look, if a student can go away and read around a subject a little bit with the help of AI, in other words, they don't have to go looking for it, right? They can just get it. Isn't that the best scenario? Now the world is, the computers are powerful. If you say, I want to know a bit about this subject, tell me, boom, they've got it. They don't have to go and find a dusty old book in the library and spend 2 hours finding the book and the reference and then photocopying it and taking it home. I mean, come on, everything is quick now. This is how they deal. In the world, they look at 1-minute videos. They haven't got time to spend 3 hours looking for sources anymore. Our generation suffered that, great, that's it. Let's not bring it on others, right?
Thank you for that lecture. My question is around the quality of teaching. In my opinion, teaching is a profession that requires a lot of passion, and it's only people who are passionate about teaching, they should go into it. But unfortunately, that's not the way it is here. A lot of people, in universities, the amount of courses, the number of courses you're assigned, that's called your teaching load, as though, it's a burden, not a pleasure. So in such a scenario, it's, for example, in Pakistani universities, people are, even though there's the so-called teacher evaluation, but everybody knows that that's completely meaningless. So what can be done to, how should I put it, to differentiate? Of course, every student knows who's a good teacher, who's a bad teacher. But what can be done to incentivize good teaching?
I mean, this discussion came up the other day, actually, and I don't think we came up with a sensible solution, to be honest. I'm not going to stand here and give you a solution. I think, I mean, in research, your success is judged by certain metrics. Promotion is judged by, my promotion is judged by a set of metrics. At each level, I have a new set of metrics and objectives if I want to get promoted to the next level. Until promotion is linked to performance, nothing's going to change. Bad teachers will stay employed, and good teachers will keep doing the work and not getting any differentiation. In salary scales, the way it works in the UK, you can get bonus if you can, instead of jumping to the next salary scale, you can get increments. So, there should be a reward system. It should be based on the feedback. We take feedback so seriously now because we have the student satisfaction survey. And we, frankly, are very scared of the student satisfaction survey, that we don't want to offend our students to the point where it's becoming like a business. They pay, we deliver, they have to be happy. And actually what's happening is students are taking advantage of that. They will appeal for everything, anything and everything. If they spot a chink or a slight thing that they think is worth, they will jump on it. And maybe they should be allowed to because, they are, and there's nothing I can do. But I think it becomes, it's like a weapon they have now that if they're not happy with the output of the result because it's subjective type assessment or something, they're not going to just sit down and take it. So student satisfaction is important when people choose universities. If there's a high satisfaction of students, then the universities are, they feel good about it, and students will generally go to the universities where there's a good quality teaching. So everybody has to chip into that. And but I get you that people don't get sacked here if they don't perform. I understand. And that's the fear is the thing that I said we have to take that out. And it should be anonymized. There should be ways of, I don't see why there aren't ways of anonymizing that. But look, I know it's so different here. And I only understand it to a certain level. I think maybe I'm not the right person to comment, but I would just say it has to be linked to promotion or increments for salaries. And I'm sure that could be done. And students should have a safe space where they can express honestly their views. I think those would make a difference if they could happen, and maybe this is not you're not able to do that because of the situation, like you say. The teachers are feared, but that's a cultural thing, right? Is if we've got to train teachers to be better teachers, and these young people like this chap who's in his first year, if he's following if he's following someone who's doing it the old-fashioned way, then we need to get hold of these people young, and inshallah ta'ala, next generation will fly and become more internationalized. That's what we want. I don't make political statements or religious statements. As UPSIGN, we have two rules: no talking about religion in public, or no talking about politics. Because as a charity, we have to work in Pakistan, so we always keep out of those subjects. So. नहीं वो प्राइवेट में जो मर्जी हो जाए बट प्राइवेसी में नॉट इन पब्लिक सर सॉरी
सर अस्सलाम वालेकुम
वालेकुम सलाम
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन आपने मेंशन किया था नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट्स ऑफ एआई सर नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट्स ऑफ एआई उसमें फर्स्ट पे था शायद इन्वायरमेंटल डिग्रेडेशन इट विल कंज्यूम मोर वाटर एंड एनर्जी how it will consume more water and energy, AI usage. I couldn't understand.
So these massive supercomputers, they need intense computing power. And these computers need cooling because they're generating large amounts of electricity to run these things. The cooling systems require water. So that's my understanding of where the energy and water comes from, because it's a huge resource. Cloud computing is exactly the same as well, because you're running these servers, these large server sites all over the world, which are protected with high security. They're often just redundant backup systems as well. So it's not just the primary one which stores the data, it's the backup system of the initial system, because they have backups of backups. So it's not just, yeah, it's just, there's huge amounts of water for cooling and energy consumption, power, yeah.
Sir, if we compare the footprints of अगर कोई टीचर फिजिकली ट्रांसपोर्ट यूज़ कर रहा है, कितने मिलियंस ऑफ टीचर्स दुनिया में यूज़ करते हैं और स्टूडेंट्स भी ट्रांसपोर्ट यूज़ करते हैं, उनका जो फिजिकल जाकर उधर पढ़ाना है और स्टूडेंट्स का भी जाना है, अगर उससे कंपेयर करें एक सिर्फ एक छोटी सी जगह पे सिर्फ उधर पानी का यूज़ हो रहा है या एनर्जी का यूज़ हो रहा है, तो किसके कार्बन फुटप्रिंट ज़्यादा होंगे या किसके कम होंगे?
I don't have the figures close at hand, but just because the way, look, climate change. Let's talk about climate change. I teach green chemistry. I understand something called the life cycle. Life cycle को कहते हैं holistic view देना चाहिए. ये पूरी system है ना, जो एक process है, transport है. There's a whole life cycle about that. You build the machine. You use so it's in pre-manufacturing, manufacturing, assembly, usage, fuel खर्च होता है. So there's basically energy in, waste out, and chemicals or materials in. That's basically the three aspects of a life cycle. Each stage पे आप देखते हैं. So there are some things that cause more emissions, and in science what we are designing is trying to design all processes like let's take transport. जो आपने किया तो मैं आपका example use करता हूँ. Today we are driving big buses that are using fossil fuels and they are detrimental to climate change. ठीक है ना? But tomorrow we'll be driving electric vehicles that are using renewable energy, and the world is already doing that, by the way, sir. So the carbon footprint overall, I mean, what you do is you add up all the energy and you look at the materials consumption, and that's more to do with sustainability because you're using materials, right? So जो energy consumption है उसको आप different stages पे, especially in service, जब बस चल रही है, where is the energy coming from? If it's coming from renewables, it's free, right? And not only that, so you could use solar power with a battery, of course, but then you've introduced a battery which you didn't have in the car, but then you had a dirty diesel engine with massive emissions. So it was polluting, people's health was being affected and people were hospitalized. So there was more effects actually beyond just pollution. So what we have to do is, look, we are trying to design a world in which we are constantly reducing energy, reducing the waste, and so energy consumption is really, so renewables and unfortunately Pakistan is way, I mean, they had such a big opportunity to go to renewables and avoid what the West did going through fossil fuels, but they didn't take it in CPEC. That's a slightly political thing, so I'll be careful, but it's true. However, the growth of computers and servers for AI is only going to grow and grow and grow, and there's no way you can reduce the energy of that because it's heating and cooling, it's thermodynamics. So the point is, I'm not saying it's bigger than this or bigger than that, but there's actually very little efficiency savings you can make on a computer that's getting bigger and bigger, and the growth of these is only going one way. Whereas for vehicles, we can switch to renewables. We can make vehicles last longer, so that in the life cycle, they're actually much more efficient. And we can start to use renewable materials, perhaps. We can use plastics that can be recycled and other things. And so, you know, we are good at designing things to more efficiency, and we can make them in low cost. So my answer really is that things can be improved. This is the short answer now, because I've waffled for 5 minutes to show off. But the answer is, many things that are polluting can be improved. But these supercomputers with large cooling, it's going to be harder to make them. And they are still, you know, for what they do, there's a lot of emissions with that, I think. But I don't have the numbers. I'm not that kind of guy that remembers that stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your great lecture. It was about generative AI and teachers. What about agentic AI, role of agents? As a teacher agents will lead the nation, students. There is the agents war. After generative AI, there is prompt super AI.
I don't understand the question, sorry.
Actually, the question was that overall lecture was about generative AI and teachers training. What about agentic AI? There will be agents. Now the coming AI will be a war of agents.
Can you define agent?
Agents actually इसका मतलब ये है कि एजेंट्स वो होंगे जो जनरेटिव एआई हम प्रॉम्प्ट देते हैं उसको ना. एजेंट्स वो जो आया फिजिकल सूरत में होंगे, आया सॉफ्टवेयर होगा जो आपस में एक
बॉट्स आपके का मतलब बॉट्स
व्हाट्सएप लाइक दैट होंगे जो स्टूडेंट्स को ट्रेन करेंगे और डिफरेंट उनको जो प्रॉम्प्ट हम देंगे ऑलरेडी फिक्स्ड होगा.
I think I understand the question now. So are you saying about artificial teachers like
Yes.
who are teaching people? Okay, so it goes back to the role of a teacher. I'm looking at you ladies because every time I talk about the role of an educator, but aap log smile karte hain because I'm thinking you have got accessing some part of the brain that's making you happy. The role of a teacher जो है ना, आपने just पढ़ाना नहीं, information ही इनको याद कराना. Teachers are creative. They need to enthuse the class. They need to make them feel safe and welcome. So a human being has certain qualities, if they're a good teacher, that cannot be replicated by a bot. मैं इसको bot कहता हूँ, robot, what an online agent, a fake human. That I think is going to take a little bit more time. Thank you.
Sir, I would add to your statement that you have said that I think the student can only learn through his own effort. And I think the role of a teacher is to inspire that student to make effort. So that one thing that AI cannot do. So that's why I believe that AI cannot replace a human because he cannot inspire a student. And the teacher will inspire the student by making him realize that knowledge is worth having, that understanding, knowledge, knowing is worth having. And that one thing is that I think AI cannot replace.
Well, we don't know what's around the corner, but robots are getting very human-like. And I don't want to say that never, but I agree with your point, of course.
I think this remark was central because education is learning how to learn. But then the question is, what is it that is worth learning? And here is the difference between us and them. What do we in Pakistan believe education should be about? Is it for this world or for that world? That's where the problem starts. That's why 50% of the energies of our students goes into preparation for upstairs, not for making a difference in this life. And that's why Pakistan fails in education. And this is what the idiots in the Ministry of Education do not understand. And so basically this is a political, ideological struggle for education. It's not a question of whether you should have AI or not have AI, how AI should be used. It's fundamental as to what constitutes knowledge. Is knowledge something that is to be created, something that is to be used for living in the modern world? Or is it something that you should acquire because it will send you upstairs? We have not passed that stage. And that's why there's this huge difference today, and this huge difference is going to remain 100 years from now.
I slightly disagree that I think I am saying AI is available to all, no matter who is in power. It's the individual choice. The individual for the first time, I don't disagree with it, but what I'm saying is let's not forget, no matter what is going on over there, if the individual decides they want to teach a subject and improve their students, nothing can stop them. If you are a conscientious human being, nothing can stop you, and the AI will support you, inshallah, if you use it in the right way, responsibly. You didn't have choices before. You didn't have these toolboxes. You didn't have it, so you would say, look, everything here is rubbish. I can't get the materials I need. You can generate those materials now. I mean, for me, that's the one big thing. I'm pinning my hopes on you teachers, especially you, Mr. First-year teacher, that you're going to grasp this, use it in the right way, become a really creative, engaging teacher. and do things that you couldn't do before to a level where your students become great teachers as well. Inshallah. Good luck to you.
Sir, I just want to have a small comment. No, I don't need a mic. Thank you.
Oh, okay. नहीं मैडम पता क्या है वो लोग भी सुन रहे हैं ऑनलाइन तो you need a mic.
I respect all the worthy comments of my seniors. Sir, but here I just want to wind it up that we just commented on the darker side of education system in Pakistan. And fortunately, we people are from the system where we are working the way Sir has explained. We have the flipped classrooms, we have the 3 cycles which you have told that what we know, what we want to know, and what we should be knowing. So, Sir, keep this in mind and have this ray of hope that yes, we have good education system here in Pakistan as well. And we are working on those lines. In fact, we have introduced so many years ago, the pioneer is sitting next to me, that international primary curriculum, the UK-based subject, and we are following, we are not, sir, in memorizing and ratifying. So our students are heading towards your approach and your dream, what you are looking for in the student. So we are having those students in our school.
Great
Thank
news. आप फाइनल कर लेना.
I hope you will raise your voice against the single national curriculum because good, excellent.
And we didn't follow that.
Okay.
Yes, we
Good,
did that, yes.
good. Thank you.
And our system is not following that.
We, but it is being enforced by the police and magistrates in Punjab.
We have taken ways out for it. How you follow it.
Yeah.
You need to find ways.
I think what Parvez was talking about earlier, it's this is now completely regardless of AI or whatever. It is an attitudinal problem also with education here. I was a judge at the science fair in your F11 campus. There was a wonderful project of a Tesla coil. These, I think, 7th or 8th grade students had made a Tesla coil, and they brought this fluorescent bulb next to it, and it was supposed to light up, and it wouldn't. And they tried and they tried and they changed the battery. The student figured out that, I need to change the battery. And it still didn't work. And then one of your teachers said, "Ki beta bismillah padho." That is the attitudinal problem. I experienced this on Thursday. Yeah. So that is the attitudinal problem. And the child did not say that. He changed another battery and it worked. So that was something that I thought needed to be shared.
We don't want to generalize. I mean, there's always good practice. There's always going to be bad practice. I think I don't want to paraphrase what Professor Hudboy said. I think obviously you can view the world in different ways. You can see the same thing. Or eye of a beholder mein hota hai. But we do all acknowledge, I think, that there is a countrywide issue. There's no doubt about it. The statistics hai na. Aap chalo achhe kar rahe hain. But I think do we agree there is a countrywide need for better teachers, better teacher training? I mean, let's be in agreement about something, yeah? What do we agree on? Aap mujhe bataएं. What do we agree on? Teachers need to improve training. They need to understand their role as teachers. Unka kya role hai? They need to use AI responsibly, generative AI responsibly. They need to not be lazy. They need to know their subjects, and they need to enthuse their students and make them feel secure. I mean, all these things, safe and secure campuses. We talk about harassment and all these things. I mean, we also mentioned that in the STEAM training as well. Okay, this is to do with what is your role. If a student comes to you with a problem, what is your role? How do you handle that situation? We do a little exercise on that, which gets some really interactive exercise on that, which is always fascinating to see people reflecting on how they deal with the student. जब वो student उनके पास आता है उसकी problem होती है वो अपने phone पे अच्छा बेटा मैं अभी so we're all guilty of it a little bit actually. जब आपका बच्चा आपके पास आता है तो आप busy हो आप phone पे हो बच्चा आपको your child आपको कह रहा है कि mommy daddy can I get your attention, and you're distracted by your phone. We're all guilty of it, right? As teachers, as parents, as people. So we need to reflect on what we are doing in our lives, not just in our teaching time, actually.